Adumni, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight this evening. So many disappointed potential voters ahead of this election, but it appears as though the postponement at the final hour has been met with mixed reactions. What is the sentiment on the ground right now?
Thank you for having me. A lot of Nigerians are disappointed and disillusioned by this act. Several people have traveled long distances to be able to exercise their electoral rights. And what is happening is that there's a lot of confidence in the Independent National Electoral Commission from both parties. You can see a lot of people calling on the Electoral Commissioner to resign. And it's not really far-fetched because the INEC in Nigeria, what we call our Electoral Commission, has had 4 years to do just one job, which is to conduct the elections. Apparently, they are basing their arguments on logistic failures caused by a number of things, including delaying arrival of materials and sabotage of voting and sensitive documents. But I don't think Nigerians accept that. A lot of people are calling for the resignation of the INEC chairman.
Though there's a rumor that is going around that the postponement has been orchestrated in collusion with the People's Democratic Party. Is that even a possibility at this stage? Because now that looks as though there's an aligning with the political party instead of aligning with the people's representatives.
I think that it is far-fetched. It is what you expect in a political situation. Both parties have actually thrown these accusations at the INEC. For instance, the PDP is saying that the INEC is doing the APC's bidding, while the APC says that INEC is doing the PDP's bidding. I mean, these are not things that you would not expect from a very heated contest in Nigeria and all other places in the African continent. So it is far-fetched. I don't think anybody should take this seriously. However, there are very important issues that could cause problems for the elections in Nigeria if the INEC decided to go ahead with it. One of the key issues was the fact that several states had no materials ready, and there was targeted attacks on INEC facilities. There were 3 arson attempts at the facilities of the Electoral Commission in Nigeria, the materials including 4,600 smart card readers were burnt down, an office was burnt down, and ballot papers went missing in certain parts of the country. So it is not for us to accuse who's really behind this, but I think that the state should take ultimate responsibility for the failure to secure INEC and ensure that logistics materials were delivered.
Well, the problem with this is that this is not the first time. I mean, we had the 2011 where there was a similar postponement. We had 2015 where there was another postponement. One would think that INEC would have learned his lesson come 2019 for an election, as you're mentioning earlier on, that there was only one job to fulfill, and that is just to make sure that we're prepared ahead of the elections. And to actually postpone hours before people are going to go to the polls says something about the respect towards the Nigerian people.
It does say a lot, to be honest, and I think that this is where Nigerians have drawn the line. According to a report which I've just received from a think tank called SBM Intelligence, this has cost Nigeria close to about $2 billion in economic loss. And I don't think that INEC's decision would have gone otherwise, but it is really, really sad that you have been unable to conduct the election. I think in the previous years there have been different pretexts for each cancellation. There was the security pretext in the 2015 elections because Boko Haram, the terrorist group, controlled large swaths of Nigeria's territory. But I mean, for 2019, a logistic failure would just not suffice for Nigerians, because there is nothing new to the fact that INEC could be sabotaged. It's not new that their offices have been set ablaze. So I think they need to say something better than that. However, I mean, the elections will go on, but the consequences are far-reaching. The Nigerian voters who were extremely enthusiastic about this particular election would probably not have that same enthusiasm in 1 week's time, and this is really huge for the turnout and other things that might affect the perception of the exercise.
Well, on the other side, I mean, the president has called for calm. I mean, the presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, also called for calm. It would appear as though people are trying to just go on with it and remedy the situation as soon as possible so that one can have that election date. Any indication as to when there would be a possible election date, and in terms of how long will it take to even salvage some of those issues that you're speaking about where materials are concerned?
The chief electoral officer in Nigeria has just released an address about 1 hour ago, and he has said he's able to do all of these things within one week, including reconfiguring the smart card readers. We are going to hold him up on these words, but we cannot say for certain that the elections will not be postponed again. A lot of people are really doubtful. There's like an escalating security situation in pockets of places in Nigeria, especially in the northeast and the middle belt, and we don't know if there might be another reason to suspend elections in certain parts of the country. So we would be watching.
I mean, speak about suspending elections on certain parts of the country because of the rising tension within those areas in themselves. I mean, I just read one report saying that 66 people, for example, were killed by unknown gunmen in, is it help me out, is it Kaduna State? So with regards to that, there clearly is a mounting security risk, and in that event that the security risk is mounted, does that institute a complete shutdown of the elections within those states completely until calm has been restored and the violence has subsided?
I think the approach, by and large, has been for INEC to say that we cannot hold elections in certain parts of the country. I mean, there are already pockets of places in Nigeria, in Madagali, in Adamawa State, they are saying elections could not hold in 24 areas in the country. And what has happened is, I think the INEC is going to decide on which areas is unsafe for them to move in materials for the elections. As far as the Kaduna situation that you have cited, I need to put it out there that it is fake news. It is fake news that is being propagated by the chief executive officer of the state, the governor, who has claimed without evidence, without proof, that 66 people died. I think that is in a bid to escalate ethnic tensions between people.
So who's propagating these fake news, and what's the purpose of actually propagating it? I mean, just take us, let's be clear on that. I know that you kind of went past that issue, but why would somebody instigate for these kinds of news to be known to the, number one, the continent, but also the global community? Because this news is spreading.
Yes, I am baffled and appalled at such news as well. But one of the things that you could almost discern is that the governor is trying to instigate a crisis. I think a crisis gives him the opportunity, whether it is to delay the elections or it is to militarize the elections, as the case may be. And this is the governor who has the track record of saying this type of stuff. Recently, he has threatened that foreign election observers would go back in body bags if they intervened in Nigeria's electoral process. I mean, so this kind of person should not be given any credibility by both local and international media, and there is no truth to that story. I think instigating crisis might be one of the strategies that the governor considers as an electoral advantage.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to this issue around, the various states that may or may not get an opportunity to vote simply because of the violence in those states. But then what happens to them in terms of where governance is concerned? I mean, what under what is that state automatically put under administration, or what happens in that instance where people are not going to vote in those various states? What happens to the people of those states even?
I think currently we don't have such situation yet. No state is completely overwhelmed by Boko Haram. But what we have in Nigeria is like pockets of places are now like fenced against the Nigerian government. Boko Haram controls and runs institutions there. What the Electoral Commission has said is we're not going to be holding elections in this part of the country. And if people manage to get out of that place, you can vote in alternative locations. However, there are parts of the country where the governors themselves has opened up like suggestions like we might need a military rule for a while just to tame the crisis. So there are suggestions like that, but there is no real incident or threat of that nature at the moment.
And then the INEC commissioner, how long has he been at the helm for?
Oh, he's been at the end for 4 years now. I mean, he was one of the first appointees of the president after the last electoral commissioner at his tenure expired.
Yeah, because the follow-up question with that would be, if he had been at the helm since 2011, why was nothing done then? And if he had been at the helm since 2015, why was nothing done then? But it appears as though there's still a level of incompetence that exists within the appointing of commissioners. Then, which would bring me to the question of how are commissioners then appointed if they're failing to even deliver once every few years with regards to election preparation material?
I think that there are a lot of issues around that. One of the main issues is that the president has the authority to appoint whoever becomes the chairman of the INEC in Nigeria. And what that means is a lot of scrutiny might not have gone into the process. A lot of requirements are not clearly outlined as to what the INEC chairman should look like, what he should be, what technical capabilities he should possess, as opposed to other very serious agencies in the country. The other part of it is that the government itself has managed to effectively sabotage INEC, because while not making excuses for their incompetence, there are issues where the budget was just approved in the year of the election, and funding was not released until late 2018, which is literally the electoral year for the commission to perform its duties after several exchanges between the executive and the legislature.
I know we have to leave our conversation there this evening, but thank you so much for joining us and shedding some light in terms of exactly what is happening on the ground where Nigeria is concerned.